Hi, everyone. Welcome to our community session. As you know, every time that we're doing a new release, we're having like a week after a community session just to walk you through the new product updates, to talk a little bit about what's going to be in the next release and to hear your feedback. We do want this session to be interactive, so don't hesitate to use the chat to ask them questions, to give us your feedback about what you're hearing and about the new features that we are going to present to you. I'm Jenny. I'm Director of Product Marketing at Port, and I have with me Dan, which is one of our SEs. And next slide, yeah. So today we are going to run through as I said, the major release theme. We are going to show you Dan is going to show you the new features and the corresponding demos, and you'll also get a little sneak peek into the next release.
Okay, so let me introduce
Dan,
myself.
stage is yours.
Yeah, okay, so let me quickly introduce myself. So my name is Dan Amzaleski. I'm a solution engineer at Port. A little bit about myself. So I'm married +2. I live in Austin, Texas. I lived all around the world, but currently residing in Austin, Texas. I joined Port not too long ago, just 2 months ago. That said, I'm already loving it. And a little bit about my tech background. So I'm a computer science major. I've already done almost 20 years of solution engineering. I'm really passionate about infrastructure, cloud, of course, automation, and AI. The combination of the two is amazing. And basically, the goal is to create faster, more efficient. That's what's driving me. More efficient solutions. And just maybe personal things. I do, if I do find a little bit of time, sci-fi, books, movies, and other geeky stuff. If you'd like to hear more about me or just to communicate, I'm in the community, so feel free to reach out directly. I'll be happy to discuss and elaborate more. So with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the things that we're gonna go over today. So some of the big improvements, we've added port-hosted integrations. I'm gonna dive into each and every big improvement and all the smaller ones as well, but just a few words at a high level. So up until now, we had all sorts of integrations that you can run locally, whether through Docker or through Kubernetes. But now we enable you to also do port-hosted integration. So the workloads is on our side, less responsibility on your side. That said, there's also some limitations, which I will show later on. Workflows. This is a very new concept that we've just added. Basically, it's an enhancement of other existing platform pillars, such as the automation and the self-service actions, and combining them both to create something called workflows, and I'll dive deeper into that later on. We have GitHub and GitLab file parsing, so not only the overall entities, but also the ability to ingest files, parse them, and place that data inside the platform. Several user experience improvements, which I'll go over small examples as well. We've also added a few more integrations, Octopus deploy, which I'll be happy to go over. And also, of course, Azure DevOps work items, which will be enhanced to support many other options as well. And a new exciting sections in our docs, the guide section, which I will show. And the idea is basically that up until now, we had these granular explanations and documentation about kind of the building blocks, but guides will kind of attach all of these building blocks in order to create a cohesive kind of workflow to build something. So another thing that we've added is engineering metrics. So beyond just DORA metrics, there are several more engineering metrics and dashboards that you can create. The idea is to provide you an ability to not only add some KPIs to your dashboards, but also enable them to customize them and have the full flexibility to match your organizational perception on what are those metrics, as opposed to other platforms that will just give you, black box metrics. So with that out of the way, let's dive into each and every major improvement. So one of the big ones is the workflows kind of entity. It's not exactly an entity. It's more of a concept. You can think of it as, if you're familiar with our automations and you're familiar with our self-service, workflows are basically the combination of the two. So it's automations with multiple sequence action. Now, the idea is that you can trigger automation in several ways. You can trigger them by a piece of data. And nowadays, we've added something new that would enable you to also trigger them based on actions. So the change in the status of an action will enable you to trigger an automation. And the combination of the two would allow you to create a workflow that some of the actions will be triggered by an actual change in data, and some of them based on the change of newly executed action, for example. Now, I'd like to show you in our guides what that looks like, just for a second. So basically there are two types of triggers to an automation. We have the entity that will allow you to specify a new entity created, that maybe an entity deleted, or any change to an entity. What we've just recently added that will enable you to create these workflows are action-based runs. So you've created an action run, or possibly updated, or even any change. This will enable you to trigger another action. So going back to our presentation, let's take a look at why this is. What can you do with Streamline? So one of the key things is streamlining developer onboarding. Sometimes it could be a multi-phase process where the first phase you just want to scaffold a new service, and after 2 weeks, once the developer is up to speed, you most likely would like to also provide them additional permissions to additional tools. Now, the ability to kind of encapsulate those into actions allows you to not only create this workflows, but later on reuse these actions to create ad hoc kind of utilizations of those specific functions. So a key one is developer onboarding, which will show you an example of what that would look like. On-call procedures, it's another one that will save time and most likely will include several steps. Cloud management, maybe there is a process that has dependencies between the steps, but this will allow you to also do cloud management, security tasks, of course, and many, many more. So the key takeaway that I would like to provide to you is that you can create very flexible, robust workflows based on existing self-service actions that you possibly already created. Next, so why would you even want to use workflows? It's most likely self-explanatory, but let's go over some of the main reasons. So first of all, enforcing compliance with organizational policies. A lot of, not a lot, but there's a very direct connection between compliance and workflows. Compliance, there's several types of rules that you need to adhere. Sorry, and workflows will enable you to basically step-by-step adhere to those requirements. Another example is enhancing speed. So a great example that I mentioned previously was incident management. If we can orchestrate all of the requirements and the automated functions in a way that is, like I said, automated, this will speed up the way that you will approach and fix the incident. So another thing that is, I think, a byproduct of that, but also a reason to use it, is the idea that you can decouple and reuse actions. So if you think like a programmer, you'd most likely break things into functions. And this is basically what we've done. So all of the actions become kind of functions, and then you can orchestrate them and actually add more to it because you can also depend on the data through automations. Now let's take a look at an actual example. I already mentioned the idea that onboarding a new dev is something that can most likely require multiple steps. So the first trigger would be a new developer join. So the data and the users of possibly the team of the developers has a new entity. This will trigger an action to grant read-only access to possibly Git, Argo, and so on. Next step, 2 weeks have passed, so there's another change in the table, which is basically the time, the delta between created and current time. And this too can trigger a request for approval for write permission. So the beauty of the actions is it could also be dependent on additional approvals, and this ties back to what I was mentioning with regards to compliance. Step 3, manager approves. This will kick off a new action that will grant the developer write permissions. This can continue on, but this just wanted to illustrate an actual real-world example. This can go on, and possibly, after a while, if a developer performs 5 commits, it also sends a Slack message. This message is sent. You can grant additional permissions to additional environments. I think we've kind of covered, because the options are the sky's the limit. Let's take a look at a real demo of what this looks like in the platform. Before I continue on and jump into a demo, I just wanted to make sure that, are there any questions, Jenny? Anything that we can answer? You are on mute.
I don't see any questions in the chat, but ladies, gentlemen, like if you're having any questions, please drop a line in the chat, and I'll make sure to read them aloud so that Dan can answer them.
Awesome. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Let's try to basically kick off the second action by just using one action. So once I click create and execute first action, this will basically trigger also an automation workflow. Now, if we go and take a look at what that automation looks like. So this is action 1 triggers action 2. Let's take a look at the actual concept. Bear in mind, what I'm showing right now, these are early stages of automation where there is JSON configuration involved. This will still be the case later on. You'll still have the full flexibility to customize the JSON, but going forward, and hopefully Jenny might also discuss this later, we're also going to enhance it with a visual graphic UI as well. But that said, let's take a look at what exactly we're doing here. So this is an automation, and the event is run created. This is what we talked about. Once action 1 has been executed, this means that this will be the trigger to actually run action 2. The one thing that I want to possibly double click on right here is the fact that we've also added a new invocation method. This is actually part of previous releases, but some people are not aware of it. So we can basically use webhooks to invoke additional actions. So you'll notice that this is leveraging our API. No need for authentication because we are the platform itself calls itself. There's no need for authentication. You just need to specify the action name. And if we go to just the audit log and runs, we'll see 2 things. First of all, action 1 is in progress, but you'll also see action 1 trigger. This is our automation was successful, which means that we also see action 2 right now in progress. So this was just a simple example on how you can trigger additional items. This was a very simple one. So just based on creation, this created the execution of one action executed the second action. But of course, you can add additional filtering and additional rules to actually executing the second action. So hopefully this gave you some inspirations of some ideas on how you can leverage this. We'll be happy to explain more and help you on your journey to accomplish more complex workflows. Feel free to reach out in the community.
If I can add one sentence about it, Dan, we are seeing a lot from our customers regarding workflows. One of the most common use cases is just sending a notification after an action has run. And then you can chain those actions one after the other. So this is like a very common use case if you want to send a Slack notification after a manager approval, or if you want to send a Slack notification after a specific action has run. So it's a good way to do it using this feature.
Okay, continue on. So another exciting addition to our latest release is the port-hosted integrations. It's a very kind of a plug-and-play experience, so it's quite easy to set up and ingest data. As a technical guy, I find our previous on-prem and real-time integrations just as easy as well. However, sometimes possibly you do not want to manage and possibly, maybe you have an environment you do not want to introduce additional workloads, or maybe there's no option from a communication standpoint. Providing back or enabling ports to actually execute the ingestion mechanism, the integration, makes life easier. So nowadays we have integrations that have this option. We're going to add more and more going forward, additional support for cloud providers. It's quite easy to basically add this. Let me show you an example that I've already added. So if we look at data sources, I've already added here this Octopus deploy, which is actually quite a nice segue to additional slides going forward. But what we see here is two things. Is first of all, the fact that this shows as hosted by port. We also see when the last catalog was updated, when was the last time this was executed, but also when is the next resync. So this is also new. And since these are not fully real time, so they have a cycle when it updates, then you also have a notification or kind of data point to when is going to be the next sync. And of course, also the status. Configuring is quite easy. You don't have to deploy anything. I'm using Octopus Deploy as my example for several reasons, mainly because this is also one of the topics, is this is a new integration. But just to show you how easy it is, you give just a new name to your data source, and then we have the installation method. As I mentioned previously, we had the Docker and the real time. And you can also ingest this through kind of API that runs as part of a GitHub or a GitLab CI. However, going hosted, all you have to do is provide the API key, the server URL, and this will start running on our site. Let me know if there's any questions. Other than that, it's quite of a easy feature to leverage, easy yet powerful. So going back, let's take a look at another addition. We have ingestion file content from GitHub and GitLab. So the idea is that nowadays GitOps has more and more momentum. A lot of the I would say ecosystem of DevOps is adopting GitOps, whether it's Argo CD, whether it's using Terraform in Git. The idea is this feature allows you to do two things. First of all, it allows you to just ingest different types of files, parse them, and then use that data. A very simple example would be code owners that you possibly want to parse and get who are the code owners inside the portal. Another example could be just the JSON package file that you might want to list all of the packages and what are the required version. But another thing that you can do with these GitOps driven files is to add new entities or possibly new blueprints, relations. So all of the data that becomes kind of entities you can define as a file. So this is a very simple example. I created two entities. Both of them are in my blueprint. The properties themselves, my values, just a number and a URL. And eventually, if we take a look at what this looks like, this is in GitHub. It, of course, works also in GitLab. And this is what it will eventually look in the portal. These are the two entities that I do. And they are automatically ingested. Bear in mind, there are multiple customizations that you can apply to the mapping. So you don't have to actually ingest the data as is. You can both augment the data and also filter it before actually populating it into the portal. So with this topic out of the way, if there's no questions, let's dive to the next topic, which is user experience enhancement. So even though these are small enhancements that we've added, they're very powerful and basically saves you time and a little bit of the frustration of using things that are time consuming. So the first example is, I've showed this previously, but we also provide a data sync status. You can actually click on refresh yourself, so manually resyncing. However, the automatic resync has a window, and this will allow you to understand, if you've already updated something and you don't see it reflected in the portal, you also know exactly when is the next resync. And if it's something that is critical, of course, you can also manually trigger it. Another thing that we've added is the entity card widget. The idea behind this is that you can add a widget, just like you see here in this example, with a prod environment that will provide you the entry itself. So the best example that I can give is, in this case, when we look at our environments, each environment has kind of a metadata about it, how many incidents, how many, let's say, Kubernetes nodes, or what is the cost. This is the best example. So what you can do is basically select a widget, you select the blueprint and the entry, and then it serves you as kind of a North Star or guiding data to how to perceive additional data in a table. Next, we have the entity sorting actions for the input form. So this is when I mentioned removing some of the frustration, this is exactly what I was referring to. So when you input data into a self-service action, sometimes you would like to use the entity selection. Most likely, you will be using blueprints that contain multiple entities. And when you have several dozens of them, having the ability to sort these, for example, by the entity creation, will save you time each and every time you need to use that action and go over dozens of entries. Okay, so on to the next topic, new Ocean integrations. So these are the integrations. Ocean, just a few words about it, is our basically current open source engine to provide integrations that, and when I say open source, this means that it's both available to view exactly what it does, but it also enables you to extend it. Nowadays, we've added support for Octopus deploy. A small personal angle on Octopus deploy. I used to work for a company called CodeFresh that basically did CI/CD, so both in Kubernetes CI, but also Argo CD at scale for the CD portion. So Octopus deploy purchased CodeFresh last year, and so CodeFresh is kind of under that umbrella as well. So I'm excited to have this integration in our platform as well. And Octopus Deploy is not only a new integration, but also supported what I previously showed as SaaS integration. So this is, I don't know exactly what you're using for CI/CD, but this is a great option. And we also have Azure DevOps work items. So currently just the work items, but we have plans to add more and more enhancements to ingest more and more Azure DevOps options. Next, we have the engineering insights and visibility. So when I'm mentioning engineering insights nowadays, people tend to automatically think of DORA metrics, and indeed we've added support for DORA metrics, which is very exciting, especially as from a technical standpoint, this provides you a lot of flexibility to design DORA metrics to match your exact perception of how these KPIs, what data they should basically reflect. But moreover, we've added more and more abilities and several more engineering insights, such as incident management, dashboards, production readiness. The idea is that you can basically build a lot of the data that exists here. We have examples in not only our documentations, but we've also added a new section called guides, which I'll go into. So what I want to say about this, we want to support not only the developers and the DevOps and the SREs and all the people that basically consume this environment to do their day-to-day work, but we also want to cater to any management layer, directors, or anyone who needs to basically manage and understand the overall KPIs and overarching data that will allow them to steer the directions of the development and see where they can improve. So this will enable you to provide management level with all of those KPIs and also augment them to match their perception. So another option that I just jumped the gun and already mentioned, as a bonus, we've also added our guides section. Let me show you what that looks like. So up until now, we had the home where you would see things that are basically very granular, how to install an integration, how to promote a scorecard, for example. But what we've added with guides is the ability to basically tie end-to-end a cohesive process of, for example, how to add engineering metrics. And this is to kind of provide also a summary. So if you're interested in taking a look at our guide section and then also engineering metrics, and then possibly maybe we want to take a look at how we want to accomplish DORA metrics, then this will take you step by step. What are the prerequisites? What are we tracking? How to create a data model? How to also pick your right tracking strategies. And as someone who also tested this guide specifically, I can tell you that it's the idea of creating DORA metrics in less than an hour is just mind-boggling. And the fact that you can customize it to match exactly what you need is just, I'm familiar with a lot of platforms out there. None of them will provide you, I think, the ability to create it this fast, but also at the same time providing this level of custom abilities and everything basically in a self-sufficient guide. So I know you might say I'm not subjective, but objective to this, but I think you should try it yourself. So Jenny, our next slide is what is coming up next.
Yeah, so what are we working on really right now and what will be provided in the next release? So first of all, we are adding support to SCIM. SCIM stands for System for Cross Identity Management, related to SSO and Okta. Some of our enterprise customers have requested the support for SCIM, and we are adding it, and it will be available on the next sprint. The next addition that we're making to port on the next sprint is a kind of a UX enhancement. So let's say that today you're having a self-service action and you're having a form for the self-service action, and the form is very, very long. So what you will be able to do with port is that you will be able to break it down into like steps, and then you can have step 1, step 2, step 3, just to make it more user-friendly for the developer or the person that is going to fill the form. It's not going to be a very long form, and you will be able to break it down a little bit. So this is the second enhancement. As Dan mentioned, we are doing improvement to the automations UI. So you've seen that in order to configure the workflow, Dan had to write the JSON. We are providing a UI for it. You will be able just to configure automations via an UI, which is really, really nice. And someone asked about it on the chat, and I answered that it will be provided in the next sprint. Today, the integrations that are hosted by Port, what Dan was showcasing a little bit earlier, are not including cloud providers like AWS, GCP, Azure, etc. On for the next sprint, we are adding support for cloud providers as part of integrations that are hosted by Port. So stay tuned. It's I know it has been requested a lot. Last thing, I'm sure you're aware, but you can, we are managing our roadmap on our website. You can influence the roadmap. You can see what is planned, what is in progress. You can upvote for a specific feature. And you can also see the last releases. So don't hesitate to engage with us on the roadmap, and we are always willing to hear your feedback. And the best features that we've developed came from you, so continue to do that and engage with us.
Okay. So first of all, I want to thank you all for attending, and I'll be happy to continue on the conversation over Slack in our community channel. Are there any other open?
Yes. Yeah, so someone asked regarding like if we are going to support the cloud provider for Port hosted, so we've answered that. Maybe let's wait 1 minute or two if you want to drop something on the chat. And if not, we can wrap it up.
Okay. Not seeing anything in the webinar chat. Okay. So
thank you very much.
Wish you all a great week and happy Monday. I hope to see you soon back here.
Bye-bye.